the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
Baker.
Here.
Bell. Here. Eatson here. Hoskins.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Randalls. Ross.
Here.
Slade.
Here.
President Lanier.
Present. We have an agenda before us. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Support?
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign? Great, we have an agenda. We're going to get right into it. We have a full agenda, so we'll get started right into celebrations. Madam Superintendent?
Good evening, President Lanier, members of the board. I would like to start with John Himholt. He is going to ask the Kent County Prevention Coalition to join him.
Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Neal, thank you for the opportunity. These are faces that are not new to the board. They've been here before, in fact, about a year ago. Ms. Shannon Cohen and Denise Herbert from the Kent County Prevention Coalition, and they have been doing remarkable work with our students and have a big event coming up that's going to showcase some of the talent. And without further ado, I'll turn it over and they can tell you more.
Wonderful. Thank you, Superintendent Weatherall Neal and President Lanier, members of the board. It's good to be back before you. Last summer, we participated in developing a module enhancement for the health classes of Grand Rapids Public Schools. It was approved by the Curriculum Review Board, and this year we've been piloting that. So we have two celebrations to share in part of that. The Kent County Prevention Coalition, one of the projects that we spearhead here in the community is the Above the Influence Kent County Initiative, and that initiative empowers young people to live above negative influences, especially drugs and alcohol. And so one of the things we're excited about is that through our work with Grand Rapids Public Schools, we have been selected as a model community nationwide. So we're one of 11 communities nationwide that have been selected as a model community by the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. And in partnership with that, they sponsored a contest recently where they wanted to partner with local communities to develop above the influence billboards that were created by youth in select communities. And they were only going to select 2 communities nationwide. I'm excited to tell you that 3 of our youth were finalists. Central and Union students were finalists, and we were selected. And so I'm going to, we're excited about that. Great. So we're going to pass to you a 2-sided document. This billboard is actually up. It unveiled April the 9th. We have the locations where you can drive by and see this billboard, US 131, I-96, and we're excited about it. It was created by Thalia Vega. Thalia couldn't be with us tonight, but Thalia is a senior at Central High School, so this Let Your Heart Do the Speaking was the model that she created. The students had to use 6 words or less to describe what helps them choose, how they choose to live above the influence. So we're excited to see this billboard and it to be sponsored here in our community by the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, and they will be on site at the summit to present a formal award to Thalia. So you'll see the billboard on the front and then the letter that she received from the White House on the reverse side, and we actually framed this and presented this to Thalia at our General Assembly meeting. So that's our first celebration. We're excited about that. And then our second celebration is, of course, the upcoming Youth Summit that we have coming up at DeVos Place. 2 days of just an unforgettable experience that we're planning for youth, and excited to have so many students from Grand Rapids Public Schools, so many schools participating as a field trip with that initiative. So we are really thankful to the board. Thank you for your support with social marketing and with the phone tree to really get the word out in the community about this event. And we actually, the celebration that we have, we won't show the video for sake of time, but we were able to create a 30-second PSA featuring Grand Rapids Public School students to market this event. Now that's kind of a celebration, but the great celebration is through a partnership that we have with Celebration Cinema, that PSA is airing in 6 markets. So Lansing, Benton Harbor, Muskegon, Kalamazoo, Jackson, and Grand Rapids. So we're really excited that we are taking health and prevention in innovative ways with GRPS students and where youth are, where youth live and youth play. So we thank you for your support in that. that. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here with us. Any questions? Yes, colleagues, comments, questions?
Right.
Thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You guys always come bubbly, too.
Right.
Next, I would like Ron Gorman to come up.
Good evening, President Lanier, board members, Superintendent Weatherall Neal. Tonight I have the pleasure of bringing two colleagues with me. One, Mr. Rodney Lewis, who's the building principal at Ottawa Hills High School. Mr. Lewis. And next, Ms. Bobby Jo Kenyon, who is a teacher, a science teacher at Ottawa Hills High School. I had the privilege of seeing Ms. Kenyon in action at an Ottawa Hills High School governance board. She presented data about her classes, and she addressed two specific areas. And I was just taken aback of how much hard work I saw put into her presentation. She addressed two specific areas with students, one around the formative assessment piece, and secondly, one around the attendance piece. And a couple of weeks after that presentation, I was told that we had a teacher in our school district who is a finalist for the Michigan Teacher of the Year Award. And let's just say that I was not surprised when I found out that it was Ms. Bobby Jo Kenyon. This evening, I'd like to give you just a little bit of background information on this award. Bobby Jo was selected as one of 3 regional finalists for the Michigan Teacher of the Year Award. 4 state finalists will be chosen this month, actually this week. There are 2 other teachers who have been selected as finalists in our region, one from Greenville High School and one from East Kentwood High School. Some of the duties of the Michigan Teacher of the Year include serving as an ambassador for Michigan teachers, giving keynote addresses, and leading professional development sessions.
Wow.
So it's a very prestigious honor. The program is sponsored by the Michigan Department of Education, the State Board of Education, and Mimic Insurance Company. So without any further ado, I would like to give the rest of my time to Mr. Lewis and Ms. Kenyon just to speak about this great honor. Mr. Lewis.
Good evening, President Lanier, board members, Superintendent Neal. It's a privilege to be able to come to you this evening and talk about Mrs. Bobby Jo Kenyon. Mrs. Kenyon is an exemplary teacher in our building, and we had an opportunity that's pretty unique to nominate her back in September for this prestigious award. And I put a team together to kind of support her through this process to ensure that we had a player at the table. I believe that, sometimes we get lost in the shuffle of the paperwork and the emails and things like that. And so we really don't spend a lot of time of really looking through our organization to find diamonds in the rough or gems. And I think she is one of many that we do have, but she really stood out in my mind to be exemplary. And so I told Mr. Brown, which is Dean of Students, and Ms. Jan Barr, which is our principal's coach, to help support her in this process. And several months later, I look up and guess what? Bobby Jo Kenyon is a finalist for our region. And I thought that was quite unique, looking at the sometimes when you look at student achievement levels and things like that, that may not be where you want them to be, but there's still people that do an extraordinary job in your organization. And so I think she has exemplified that herself through her instructional practice, through her relationships that she has with kids, through her connections that she has with parents. She demonstrates everything that we look for with effective teaching and learning in the classroom. But that's not the only thing or only reason why I nominated her. When I look at some of the leadership that she has taken in the building as a teacher, she's instructional chair for the science department. She is the co-facilitator of our instructional leadership team in our building. She just does so many things. She's a part of our formative assessment team. She started up a program this year called Girls University through Girl Scouts this year. She's taken the lead, and one of the things that I looked at last year is who are our next leaders in the organization, and she was one of them. And we kind of talked through what that process looks like, moving forward and growing as a career. And she really wants to be a teacher. And so I said, that's great. I love that. But how can you help affect the entire organization? And so she started taking on those leadership roles that we just talked about, instructional leadership team. She also facilitates the new teachers that come into the building from 0 to 36 months. So she works through professional development to help support their growth and development. So, she's been phenomenal, right? And so I'm not going to speak too much longer, but I am going to turn it over to her to speak. But she is an extraordinary teacher for us at Ottawa Hills High School.
That's great. Thank you, Mr. Garman, Mr. Lewis. Thank you, Ms. Lanier and Neil and the board members for having me here today. Thank you.
So
This is your first opportunity to give a speech, just in case you win this to go on tour.
So, funny story to share. Kenny was a little nervous coming up here this evening, and I said, "Don't worry, Mr. Lewis and I always look for affirmation when we're finished to make sure that we did okay." So, therefore, I told Ms. Kenyon that she's really off the hook. But if you have any questions at this time, please feel free.
Sure,
to ask.
absolutely.
You guys did a good job.
But she is dynamic in the classroom. You're welcome to come see her at any time. She does communicate very well.
That's great. Any questions, comments? Dr. Fowle?
Well, I think a great teacher is a good listener and doesn't talk a whole lot, so I think that's a good indication. I want to thank you, Mr. Lewis, for putting forward the nomination and recognizing leadership and developing it. That's huge. And I'm wondering when you have time for anything outside of everything you're doing, but...
Not a lot at all, but Mr. Lewis has really pushed me toward that, more of the leadership role, and kind of got me out of my comfort zone, and I really thank him for that, and has made a big difference, and I feel like I have more of an influence than just my own classroom, but spreading it among the other classrooms and working with Grand Rapids. I've been here 16 years with Grand Rapids, all my teaching, and I just love it, and I love the inner city, and that was the big part that I had talked about. I had a radio interview a couple weeks ago, was just what wonderful teachers we have here in Grand Rapids, and the education is quality education. And one of the things that I did say in my interview is, one of the big things that hit me was when I had a parent that said, well, my child must be failing in these classes because you guys must not be good teachers. You're in Grand Rapids. If you were good teachers, you would be in Kentwood or Forest Hills or something. And that's part of the word I want to get out, is there's good teachers everywhere. And we have great teachers in our school system, in our school. And just for more of the community and the parents to realize, we have people that care, and we might work with a different population, but these kids need us, and they need good, high-quality teachers in the classroom. And the way the district has been moving is so positive, and I'm so encouraged by it. And the growth even that I've seen in our building, in our classrooms, and our teachers moving forward, and the growth they're making in their teaching skills, and it's just wonderful. And I just want the community to know the quality teachers that they have here.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Wonderful to hear.
Absolutely.
I actually have I'm going to ask you a question, but I don't want it to for myself. But I do take exception with Dr. Fowle's characterization there, because I think I'm a great teacher. But
You certainly
anyway.
talk a lot. I'm
Thank you.
Where you teaching?
Walk right into that.
I teach at Ferris State University. There's some distinguished visitors from Ferris State, some emerging teachers sitting right behind you. So why is it that you are such a strong advocate for teaching in Grand Rapids Public Schools? I'd like to hear, and partly I'm asking you that so the people behind you can hear you.
Well, a big thing that I hear people is writing off a lot of the inner city kids, not seeing them as going to college or their aspirations and goals. And we have had such a push for college. I've definitely seen it at Ottawa. Just, kids are in that frame of mind now. And I have all kinds of students writing me back and contacting me from different colleges. And I just had a med student that was going into med school that just made it contact me. And there's so many avenues and so many great places. And I think a lot of times they write off the kids, just get them through. But there's so much more, and the aspirations that these kids have can't be forgotten.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm just so passionate to help a group that might be the first generation going to college, that have goals and dreams to become all they can be.
That's great.
Great. Thanks.
Just to add on to that, and we'll close. But in her narrative that she wrote to the Michigan Department of Education, she shared with them on a number of occasions I was offered other jobs by teachers that enticed me to move to other districts, and that it was easier an environment is what they called it. And so her response to that, Ms. Kenyon's response to that is, it's not about just being easy, it's about making an impact. And so I think that was the critical component when I read this that really stuck out to me in her work. So.
That's great.
What you didn't get to see were some people behind you that was very moved by what you had to say. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. No student representatives. Do we know anything about what's going on with them?
I know Evelina's sick.
Okay. Public comment. I just got a card. Is this for agenda item or non? Okay. So off to the reports. Secretary's report.
Thank you. I have one letter that President Lanier received that I would like to take an opportunity to read. I would like to thank the board for recognizing the Grand Rapids Public Schools hockey team that was done at the last meeting. They're very excited to come to the meeting. I'm sorry the coach did not read the letter from the Jennison parent that was sent. So there's a letter that's attached to this from a parent in Jennison that apparently had an opportunity to witness our kids. So I want to share this. Some praise from a Jennison parent last night. As a parent and a teacher, I was amazed at the positive attitude your entire team exhibited throughout the season. You may have lost all your games, but you stand, all in capitals, above any other team by your positive attitude on and off the ice, determination, and your desire to continue to give it your all even when the odds were against you. Very proud of your team and the positive support I heard in the stands from the greatest supporters. Continue to live life in this fashion and you will all go far. Attitude is more important than ability. Congratulations to your entire team. Congratulations to the parents and coaches for showing this team what is important in life. Positive attitude, support, and determination. From a stranger that noticed. Carrie DeBryan.
Nice. Good job.
Madam Superintendent, your reports.
At this time, I would like to introduce someone that doesn't really need an introduction, so she's going to come up by herself, and that is Mrs. Susan Hartwell.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Lanier, members of the board, and Superintendent Neal. Thanks for the opportunity to come talk with you briefly once again. And we have really, in the last couple of months, taken the steps to ensure we have good communication between the Board of Ed, the administration, and Student Advancement Foundation as we link arms and we're walking together to link our resources of our community to the needs of our youth, which is what we're here to do. One of the our primary goals was to start this new relationship just really clear about what the Student Advancement Foundation does, why we exist, and really just give an overview so that from this point on, we're kind of just establishing this base. So I have provided to you some overview of actually, this is the financial overview. This outlines the impact areas, because that's what we are. We're an organization there to make an impact on your students that are here right now in GRPS. Around the area of literacy is one area, and these are not special campaigns. What we're talking about here is ongoing. What we're talking about here is an every-year commitment for the Student Advancement Foundation to support the youth. So in literacy, really it's to make sure our libraries stay updated by contributing $4 per student per year. In the arts, it's to make sure that we assist by providing funds for art supplies and music supplies every year. Again, it's a dollar amount per student. In addition to supporting enrichment, arts enrichment, community-based arts enrichment experiences for every youth from grades 1 through 7 now. And I'll just say, it goes from just providing transportation to buying tickets. Basically, it's access, because we have wonderful community partners in this community. And those community partners that work with us in this initiative are the Children's Museum, Civic Theater, Art Museum, Frederick Meyer Gardens and Sculpture Park, the Symphony, UICA. So we kind of help maximize their contribution by making sure we can extend this to all of the youth. Environmental education, this is another one of our impact areas, and we ensure that 3rd, 6th, and 9th graders all have a significant outdoor education experience at Blandford Nature Center by underwriting that program. Math, science, and technology, we had a special campaign to make sure that there were graphing calculators here and available for every high school student in the math and science classes, and the peripherals that they need to go with those. So we're making the commitment to maintain those. And then a recent attempt to help our youth have access to technology outside of the school buildings was another partnership with the Grand Rapids Public Libraries, and we put laptop computers in those libraries only for GRPS kids, middle and high school. They can access all of their schoolwork right from the whatever we call that first page that comes up.
Homepage.
The home page. They can go to E2020. They can do whatever any student would do on their own with a computer. We are not limiting them. The library asked us, and we said no, but we know the library has the filters that make it safe for our kids to be exploring. And physical wellness is the newest area for us, and I was here not long ago, and we were talking about the basketball and the track and the cross country. And we're very excited that working with the district now, a sport has been identified. This is all for elementary students. In the fall. So there will be an after-school physical fitness sport activity for elementary students, most of them grades K through 5, basketball 3 through 5, in the fall, winter, and spring. And that fall one is soccer. So we've just gotten that nod that we can go out there and raise money for the soccer. And that's going to be what we are really going to promote at our Mind Share event, which is our big event coming up next Tuesday. And that's going to be our request to the community to help us fund that. And I think they're going to resonate with it. I think our community will just celebrate this effort to keep our kids active. So those are our main areas. As I said, these are ongoing. It's a commitment from us to you, and it's, but we do not fund it. We don't have any money unless we go out there and raise it, and the philanthropist for all of this is our community. So it's community members and our corporations that step forward in a big way, because this annual support totals $337,000. And that's quite amazing that it's coming all local money from our citizens in support of our students. So we're pleased, very pleased to walk alongside of you and come speak to you quarterly about what's going on. Happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions, comments for Susan?
It's wonderful that it's all coming locally from our community. That's a great support for our kids.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your work.
Good.
Thanks, Susan, for sharing the
My
report.
pleasure.
And I'd just like to add a little bit. Part of the Student Advancement Foundation's strategic planning process, the survey that the board received maybe 3 weeks ago, that was part of the strategic planning process and the communication and beefing that up. Susan and I co-chaired one of their committees for their strategic planning process, and that particular goal was to respond to the relationship for our board and their board, or that organization. Sure that this board was aware of what was happening with the Student Advancement Foundation, and that Teresa and her team connected with the Student Advancement Foundation on a regular basis, and some of the things that came out of that was to issue a survey that the survey went out to our board, the Student Advancement Foundation's board, as well as Teresa and her cabinet level staff. And so we got that feedback, and I believe John sent that out so everyone could see the results from that. And then having Susan attend quarterly, and then obviously she was here last month, maybe, or a couple weeks ago.
Last month.
It was last month,
to share when there are updates to some of the funding. So it isn't limited to quarterly, but she'll be here at the minimum quarterly. And then she's also participating in some of the principal meetings, the cabinet level meetings, to make sure that the people who are utilizing some of the funds will have a direct connection to the Student Advancement Foundation. So I just wanted to give that update.
Great.
With the work that we're doing with the Student Advancement Foundation. And you also have a board member
I do.
from the Student Advancement Foundation here.
Ms. Lupe Ramos Montagnier.
So we'd like to just wave at her since she's here this evening. But thank you so much for the hard work that the Student Advancement that they're doing on behalf of all the kids in Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Thank
We
you.
have a unique opportunity in the Student Advancement Foundation. Not every school district can say that they have a foundation who's working on their behalf and only their behalf, and I think that that's
Well, thank you. We have
treasure.
a board of volunteers that are so committed to making a positive impact for the youth that are in Grand Rapids Public Schools. It's a very inspiring organization to be involved with.
Yep.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Julie Davis coming for a donation for Blandford Nature Center.
Good evening, President Lanier, members of the board, and Superintendent Weather-O'Neill. Back in November of 2010, we brought to you a new concept for funding the construction of our Blandford Elementary School, utilizing both district and community resources. And this began with a very generous donation from our Wegge Foundation. A lot of hard work and diligence has allowed us to not only reach our goal, but to actually surpass it. So we're very excited about that. I'd like to give special recognition to Terry McCarthy from the Wegge Foundation, who has really spearheaded her efforts in her leadership in securing all the donations to make this new school building possible for us. Thank you as well goes out to the Student Advancement Foundation, as they have graciously continued to partner with Grand Rapids Public Schools and to be a flow-through for these donations. And lastly, I'd like to also thank Mary Jo Kuhlman, who from the district has been a true leader in making sure that we're all on the same page and keeping us moving forward. The architects for our project were Progressive A&E, and Rockford Construction is our construction managers. Lastly, what I'd like to do is to read a list of donors who've helped to make the construction of our Blandford School possible. We're continuing to receive donations, so please don't think this is an exhaustive list, but it's pretty nice. So I'm just going to read them down, their names. There's some foundations, there's some individuals. Ralph Hohenstein, and I apologize in advance if I slaughter any names. Terry McCarthy, Ellen Satterley, Paul and Nicolette Baumgartner, Susan Hartwell, Mary Jane Dockery, Cliff Wegner, Ryan Huppert, Mary and Thomas Brink, Michelle Obuhanek, Bert and Janet Blakey, Wynn and Kyle Irwin, Marilyn Drake, Mike and Susan Jandernoa, Bissell Incorporated, the Weggy Foundation, the Gillette Family Foundation, the Meyer Foundation, DTE Energy Foundation, Steelcase Foundation, Peter and Emma Jean Cook Foundation, Doug and Maria DeVos family, the Rich and Helen DeVos family, the Fry Foundation, and of course, Grand Rapids Public Schools. Just wanted to let you know that there's a groundbreaking ceremony on May 9th at 1:30 p.m. Do you have any questions? I'd be happy to entertain them.
Questions, comments for Julie? They're quiet tonight. I think they're trying to get out early. Right? There's something to it.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
Next, I have Ron Gorman and Mr. Lewis, once again, for academic upgrade. There's been a lot of stuff going on, you guys, behind the scenes.
I have a very brief introduction from Mr. Lewis this evening. He is here to share about an academic upgrade program that will be happening at Ottawa Hills High School. Essentially, this program takes students wherever they are and upgrades them from an academic standpoint or a grade point average standpoint. Mr. Lewis.
Thanks, welcome. Thanks for having me back. This is a little bit about academic upgrade. Last board meeting, you had the opportunity to approve a donation of about $112,000 to support the academic upgrade program. Well, the academic upgrade program began in the year of 2009-2010 school year. So this is actually our third year of its existence. And the program was designed to help support kids from a student achievement perspective. So basically, Mr. Gorman said it pretty well. Taking a kid wherever you are, whatever grade point average you have, wherever grades you have, and making a commitment from the student's perspective and the program perspective to help support those students in the areas of tutoring, in the areas of social skills, in the areas of improving their attendance patterns as well as suspension data. So last year we were able to take about 45 kids to Washington, D.C. To support the trip. 85% of the participants that participated in the program last year were actually rewarded with the trip because they qualified. And that was an outstanding number for us to have 85% of our kids part of the program completed and completed with highest esteem. So with that, we looked for additional partnership with Urban Young Life to support us in this process, and through that, we were awarded a donation of $112,000 through that existence, and we're pretty happy and pleased with that. So if you guys have any questions, any additional questions about the program, I'll be welcome to entertain those for you.
Before you do, Mr. Lewis, is it okay if we say who the donors are? They've never said that to keep it quiet.
They haven't.
I think
they haven't. So I will.
I think it's nice to at least acknowledge them. They've been so supportive.
Yeah, two of the individuals. One was Steve Timman, and the other was Dave Ellis, which is a Ottawa Hills High School graduate. So very well respected in the community.
Nice.
And they were very open to providing this gift to help support young people.
Thank you.
Dr. Andals?
I'm not familiar with the program, so is it for students that are in some sort of need help, or you can have a 3.5 and you want to boost it, and so you're just looking to improve yourself in any?
3.99.
Yeah, okay.
And we'll take you from wherever you are. You can have a 0.00, and we'll take you where you are. The goal here is to get young people committed around something so that they can make growth and gains in themselves and be committed with their efforts.
Great program.
Reverend
I
Hoskins?
might add also, Mr. Timian and Mr. Ellens, they do quite a bit in the community for our students, but they don't look for the fanfare. But it is good to mention that they some of the things that they've done, but they've done a lot more than that. But we do appreciate those guys.
Absolutely, every day.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one last report, and that is the Senior Day. Many of you know that the seniors at Creston High School really challenged me with because of all of the changes. They were really upset with all of the changes that they've been through during the past 4 years. And they asked me if I would agree to let them have a skip day. And I told them absolutely. But the skip day would be with me. Right. I've never skipped a day in my life. So we did put together a senior skip day. And I'd like to share with you what we did. So Mel Atkins and his team.
I just said, yeah.
They actually booed me when I came up to the microphone.
President Lanier,
with the superintendent.
members of the board, and Superintendent Neal.
Good evening.
You put it perfectly. It did draw out of that single conversation with Crescent students coming up to Superintendent Neal asking her that. So that thought grew into what happened March 28th, which was truly amazing.
Yes.
I wish they would have had the conversation earlier in the school year, but they didn't. It was a lot of
pressure.
I know, but one thing I learned with this trade-off is we have a truly amazing team. And so what happened was that we have a lot of individuals that help support, but it wouldn't have happened without these three individuals behind me. So I'm going to introduce to you Emmanuel Armstrong, Jennifer Bailey, and Natasha Neal. And they were, I mean, it was amazing what they pulled off in a few short weeks. And the only thing I said for them, I said, is someone capturing notes? Because I think this is the first annual. So you know, it's going to grow and grow, but I was proud of it. Students won't forget it, and I definitely appreciate everything you did. So,
thank you.
One up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Mel and Teresa sort of touched on a little bit of what each of us were going to say, but I got charged with speaking about the impetus for having the event. Teresa went and spoke with a group of students from GRPS, and they were upset with GRPS and with her. She brought them donuts.
I did. Didn't work.
But we put a lot of resources to help support students who need it. But one of the things that Teresa wanted to do was to celebrate the students who were on track or close to being on track. So she wanted to be a celebratory event and informational at the same time. We had about 3 weeks to put it together. She said, "This is what I want, make it happen." And so that's what we did.
Just like that.
We pulled together a team from student services, youth advocates, counselors, family support. We couldn't have done it without our team. We're looking forward to doing it again next year. We learned a lot, but the students enjoyed it, we enjoyed it, and we're looking forward to it for next year.
Great.
To ensure that all our students are career and college ready, we provided 5 workshops that were 30 minutes. Each student had an opportunity to attend 2 of those workshops. The workshops included assisting students through their senior year, so some of the students who were struggling, it gave them opportunity to meet with their counselor one-on-one or as a group. They discussed their credits, their progress to graduation. support options out there for them, credit recovery, unit recovery, Saturday school, tutoring opportunities for them. That was one workshop. Another workshop, oh, by the way, that was done by our high school counselors. Another workshop was paying for school, discussing financial aid options, the FAFSA, scholarships, grants, and that was done by two of our counselors, Christy Bonilla and Danielle Ralston. And then we had another one on first day of college, staying safe away from home. That was presented by Larry Johnson to discuss life after high school, how to be safe and make good choices. Another one was selling yourself. That was presented by Jamie Gordon, talking about selling yourself to an employee, resume building, how to do a cover letter, interviewing tips, and how to maintain that job once you receive that job. And lastly, we had another workshop, So College Isn't For You. So we had different branches of the military, and also we had a representative from GRCC, Sarah Hill, discuss non-degree options. So we did, besides that, we provided, and I have a folder for each one of you, a folder with some information so students could refer back to on different financial aid options, about senioritis, checklists for what to take to college and so forth. We presented each student with a backpack, and I brought a sample of the backpack that included a dictionary, a notebook, pencils, pens, and so forth, and also we provided a t-shirt.
Good evening. And so I'm going to talk briefly about some of the comments that the students said. And my first one was the senior skip day. So the superintendent has already talked about that. But I can assure you by the end of this day, Ms. Neal was no longer getting booze anymore. She was standing outside as the students were leaving. It was approximately 400 students, and they were doing everything from shaking her hand to giving her a hug, and a few students affectionately said they loved her for doing that. So, but overall, the students were very appreciative of this, you know, to be inside this organization as a student from K through 12, and then to have a culminating experience like this where they get together with their friends, different teachers, different counselors, and our building principals. Everyone just all had hands on boards, and they were just so appreciative of being in that moment and being with the superintendent, who not only just came and spoke, sat, ate, laughed, and attended the workshops with them. So overall, the students were, if I can say one word, they were appreciative of that. And also the seniors, they were just overjoyed that as adults, we thought so much about them to pull them out, put on these workshops for them, and where we didn't tell them what to do. We gave them a list of 5 things they could choose from. They chose 2 things that really fit, you know, their criteria and what they were looking for and what they wanted to get out the workshop, and to attend the workshop with some of their friends, like I said, different counselors, administrators, and even support staff, the Larry Johnsons, the Jamie Gordons, to come in and give their time to present. So overall, the students were overjoyed that we thought that much about them, to celebrate them and to look at the students that were on point and doing what they were asked to do, and basically just taking care of business. And so overall, we would like to congratulate those students for not only representing GRPS in a positive light, but representing themselves and their families as the graduating class of 2012. And so that's all I have. We did come bearing gifts. We have some T-shirts from the event that was sponsored by Rockford Construction. We also want to recognize Miss Kathleen, I can't remember her last name, from the Kroc Center, but they were just excellent. They rolled out the red carpet for us, and so there are a few other people that we're some communication to thank.
Well, there's a couple other pieces that you should know. We also had voter registration there by retired GRPS teachers, and it was amazing, the number of students that actually registered to vote. So that was powerful. And then one last piece is we had students modeling cap and gowns.
That's right. Yeah.
And you think they were happy with me. When they saw the cap and gown, it was over. So it was a great event. And I put a lot of pressure on this team right here, and Mel, and I do want to thank you for all the hours that you put into this.
Any questions, comments? Reverend Hoskins?
Just a comment. Thank you, Superintendent Neal. Thank you, guys. I know you were under the gun, but, I mean, I was there. My wife and I attended. It was phenomenal. You know, as a parent of a senior and as a board member, I was very proud of GRPS, not only that day, but all the time. But certainly, you know, I sat in Mr. Johnson's session twice. I actually did. And I got something out of it.
How to make good decisions when you first day of college?
No.
You didn't have it before you went to Ferris.
Actually, when I sat through it, I was so amazed that we went and grabbed our daughter out of another session and brought her in that. We sat in the second session with her.
I bet she
and Mr.
appreciated
Johnson, I've got to get a CD for you because on yesterday I preached that sermon. Remember I told you, and it's been about 2 weeks ago, but I didn't know this term. Keep it 100.
Keep it 100.
Maybe you guys know it, but I preached that yesterday, and I mentioned your name in there, so I may need a patent from you. I don't know, but it's on our website. But it was great. Thank you guys, and you did a great job, and my daughter's still talking about it.
That's great. Ms. Keaton?
Thank you for all your efforts. I really appreciate it. I think it's events like these that really keep our kids engaged and looking forward to the following year. We've had those throughout the school career. It's that camp at the end of third grade, and it's that something at the end of the fourth grade, and the field trip to Chicago in sixth grade. That's what keeps kids going. And this is awesome because, look, they're so close, right? They're so close. We got to just keep them engaged. And it's the fun stuff sometimes that helps keep them moving forward.
Yep. Any other questions, comments?
They are going to actually get a skip day. Is it May 4th, you guys? May 11th. We're going to Houseman Field. We're going to have a field day, right, with the seniors. So they will get a skip day. Thank you.
Since we didn't have any snow days.
Supervised skip day, still.
I wish I could have attended, but I also think getting teachers and students and superintendent out of a typical structure, a typical context is really fantastic for building community and building relationships, and that's a great idea. I love the voter registration.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I popped in for a few minutes, and I attended Mr. Johnson's workshop and Jamie Gordon's. No, I only went one time. Actually, I didn't even attend the entire workshop. And Jamie Gordon's, and they were really good, and it was just the atmosphere. The kids, they were happy, and Superintendent Neal was extremely happy, and they have the right person because they'd asked me for a skip day. I'd have said, go for it. Where are we going? Cedar Point, road trip. So, because obviously I skipped. Senior skip day a couple times for senior skip day, even when I wasn't a senior. But anyway, and Teresa hadn't, so that's a good thing. Thank you all for absolutely. Thank you all for. I mean, it was well organized. I just couldn't believe how organized it was. I was there during the transition, and maybe to you guys, you were freaking out like this is horrible. But for me, I was there during the transition, and it was so smooth. You know, from one session to the next. And people disappeared. They went into wherever they were going, and it was so, obviously you guys are really close to it, so you're probably like, it was a disaster, but it was well organized. You can tell you spent a lot of time putting that together, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Already had.
She's such a girl.
Oh my gosh, she picked her color.
Thank you. Even have our names on them.
They know I was there.
Thanks, sir.
Okay.
Fat boy side.
All the logos, too.
Thank you.
Everybody's on here.
Everybody. Yeah, isn't that nice? I thought that was nice too. All the logos were on there. That was key, especially the smaller schools. Those logos were on there too. That was good.
And people were concerned, are you going to bring all of these students across the district together at one time? It's like, absolutely we are. And it was great for the students to come together as one district. So
A lot of them knew one another from elementary, and then even those that didn't, it was good today. And thanks for feeding my other daughter. I didn't have to feed her that that day. No, really, I have a senior at Grand Valley, and she's doing her internship at the Kroc Center, and she was there, so.
She's really tiny though, and someone said, "Hey, that little girl should come back." I'm like,
She's a grown-up.
she's just
She's a grown-up.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we're on to our action items. We have 4. We'll get started with the first one, which is reviewing of policy 1030.
Madam President? Mayor, could I make some maybe opening remarks regarding these? They're all interrelated, and then just kind of give a little context and background before we begin discussion. Well, before us tonight are 3 action items, 3 policy changes, and a resolution. All come as a result of Public Act 233, which is changes to school elections to November of even years. It was signed by the governor on November 28th and became effective as of January 1st this year. A little background. Right now, there's 550 schools in the state of Michigan. The election cycles for each of those districts varies from May elections to August elections to November elections to odd years to even years to every year. And the thinking of the drafters of this law was that an average election costs a school district, when there's nothing else on the ballot, between $25,000 and $50,000. If there's something else on the ballot, say a millage in our case in May, that's typically the only thing that's on the ballot in May. It could just be $5,000 to $10,000 extra to add the election. Additional reasons they decided to do this was to increase the voter participation. Typically in a May election for us, voter turnout is somewhere in the 10% range, give or take, 2 or 3%, whereas a November election is typically 55, 56%. Arguments against as to why this wasn't a good idea is it's a loss of local control, for number one. We as a school district should be able to decide what's best for us. However, the legislature did dictate that this is what we must do. As school board members, this is going to be an even year cycle election with a governor or a president or a congressman, a senator, your state legislatures. We're school board members, so we're going to be at the bottom. And the election noise, we're going to maybe get lost in the shuffle. So the factors that really come to face GRPS are, do we go to a 4-year term or a 6-year term? As it stands now, we are all on a 4-year rotation for our election cycles. And now there's been arguments made both ways as to whether it would be better for a district to remain at 4 years or to shift the election cycle to be a 6-year term, so that there's not increased turnover. If we were to remain at 4-year terms, our body would then be split 4 members in one election, 5 members in the opposite year election. If you went to a 6-year term, there's 2 scenarios that play out here. A 6-year term, the way the law is written, everyone's current term will be extended to the subsequent election following when your regular term now will end. The problem with the 6-year election as it was written, if we just extend everyone's terms, is it'll end up being a 2-5-2 rotation for 6-year terms. Now there's a way to counteract that, but it will require not only this body changing its bylaws, it will require an incarnation of a subsequent body altering the terms so that you can get everyone on an even rotation. So you can have 3 board members potentially up every 2 years. So we would have to create 4-year terms for some board members currently, some extend to 6, and it would take quite a rewrite of our bylaws. The ad hoc policy committee was charged with analyzing all the rationale here and determining what they thought was the best course of action. The policy committee consists of me, Dr. Faub, and Reverend Hoskins, and our recommendation to this body would be to remain at 4-year terms. Unanimous decision to stay at 4-year terms for the election cycle. The policies that you see before you tonight, at least the 3 policy changes relate to just changing a couple words as we already on four-year terms. The law itself takes care of all the necessary extensions. All we have to do is change when our officer elections are held. The resolution that's before you this evening will need to be passed regardless of the decision of the board to go to 4-year or 6-year terms, and that will just extend current officers until the January election cycle when board members would turn over and the new board members would take office.
Any questions? Ms. Geetson?
I've expressed this to the committee, and I still have grave concern about the 4 or 5 board turnover. I just think it's an immense amount of new people on a board all at once. The learning curve for this service is huge, and you cannot really be effective on this board right out the chute. It takes some time. And if you have 5 members leaving the board all at once, there's not very many people left to kind of carry the rest of those folks along. And that, to me, puts a big burden not only on the new people, but puts a huge burden on the people that remain. To try to get people up to speed, and I think it really does a disservice to the administrative staff because they spend a lot of time educating a lot of people. And so I understand what you're saying about we'd have to have several phases to get this fixed, but.
Well, in discussing this, it really comes down between balancing accountability and stability for the board. It's unfortunate that we got put into a circumstance where we have to make this decision because I think the course that we are on as current works just fine, and it allows for stability, it allows for accountability. There's the potential that new board members could get elected every year. In looking at the stability factor, the 6-year terms if they could be structured in a manner where it becomes 3 per cycle, does provide an opportunity for more stability. However, that does, the opposite to that would be that there's less accountability because, the number one priority of a Board of Education is to hire and/or fire a superintendent. And when people are elected to a body, they're charged often to do certain things. They have. You're elected because someone thinks you're going to do something different than maybe what is either there now or the other people that you're running against. And a 4-year cycle, I think, can provide more accountability to the electorate. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is sort of to be determined. But it also, it could take longer to make changes that maybe the electorate wants to see done if we go to a 6-year cycle, because there would only be the potential that 3 board members could be up every 2 years.
Ms. Slate, I just have a question if I can just jump in. Do you know why they chose even years versus odd? I get the whole getting everyone in one election cycle and all of that, but why did they choose?
We actually originally I don't say lobbied. We tried to put the word out there that maybe they should allow us to do November odd years. Because there's already, the city commission, there's other elections on the ballot in the odd year cycles, and it would allow for maybe less noise on the ballot to say, but there was really no stomach for that anywhere.
So we don't know what the rationale was for money?
It was cost savings.
But cost savings how? If there's something on the ballot every odd, maybe that's not the case in every city. Do you think that could be what it was?
I had some numbers. Like I said, there's 550 schools.
Yeah.
It was all over the place. The predominant number of them were, I think it was 310 or something like that, were similar to us, where we had a May election every year. There was only 51 districts, I believe, that were already on November even years. There was like 30 that were November odd years. And they just wanted to streamline the process so that there's, and there's an argument to be made for the, when you're in a May election and only 10% of the population votes, and you're the only thing on the ballot, the people that are voting in that election are paying attention. Or you wouldn't go vote in a May election. Where now it's certainly going to be a more partisan. We're a nonpartisan body. We're not accountable to any political party. Yet we're going to be on a ballot with very partisan things. And in campaigning for office, we've all done it. I don't know if anyone necessarily likes to do it. But
Reynard does.
Reynard does. But
Is she being facetious, or do you really like? Okay,
being facetious.
Okay, because I'm like, really.
When the population is 10% voting in an election, you really you have more of an opportunity to engage the active voter to get your message out. And now it's going to be much more difficult to try to find your audience when 50% of the people, 40% probably having never voted in a school board election, will now be on the ballot. And it's just a really unfortunate circumstance that we've been cast into.
Simone?
One of my comments, and though it's fairly difficult to serve on a board, and I agree with Ms. Gateson that it is amazing how much time it takes to really get up to speed on what your role is, that you're here to do policy and not to administer. That was difficult for me. So, in many ways, though 4-year feels good to me in many ways, 6-year at least it gives you more time to really get up on it. I think that's why a lot of board members have gone for 2, because it really takes some time to get up to speed on what you're doing, on policies and laws and finances and educational systems, and to really know the district, and again, to deal with the leadership and the superintendent. So it's hard to do that really fast, and I think in that way, the 6 years appeals to me. But
And we certainly factored that in, too, in thinking about the stability idea. Like you say, historically speaking, there's always seems to be at least 1 or 2 people who may have been on this board, and then they run for a subsequent election. And in elections, incumbency typically is a benefit. And history's kind of on our side that even if it was 4 or 5 up in a 4-year cycle, the chances are good that at least 1 or 2 of those individuals may seek a second term at the 4-year cycle. So there's not a complete loss of institutional knowledge. In looking at other bodies, elected bodies, whether it be the city commission, the county commission, our state legislature, they seem to function just fine. Well, maybe I shouldn't put it that way.
Okay. Objection.
Nice. They continue on operating regardless of turnover, whether it be a majority or not of that body turning over. I continue on. I don't know how functioning might not be the right word. But,
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you done, Mr. O'Connor? Because I had a couple of
and we also just to the 4 or 6 year point, it's wanting to have the term, regardless of who's going to put their name on the ballot to run for office, that a 4-year term may entice more people to participate in the democratic process because it's a lesser commitment than if a 6-year term may be a hindrance to some individuals having to make that long of a commitment to be in the public spotlight here. And in looking at other districts, there's no hard and fast data as to the number of districts in Michigan right now that have went to this. I've done a lot of reading online. I know there's still a lot of districts struggling with it. There's some that are 4, there's some that are 6, there's some that are still working on it, but there's no data as to where anyone's really going with this.
Dr. Baker and then Reverend Hoskins.
Well, at one point, unfortunately, we don't get to deliberate whether or not we have these elections in November of even years, even though I'll venture an opinion anyway. I think that really the only way that savings occurs is if we have fewer elections. And so the fact is that there's an election this May, and somebody has to pay for it. And so the only way that the state, and I think that in a democracy, elections are important. This will be very difficult for anybody, especially people who are running. For all of us, probably none of us had plans of, future elected office, and so we all had to figure out how to knock on doors in April but having to knock on doors while Romney and Obama supporters are stopping by, and congressional people are stopping by, it's just it's going to be pretty difficult to get our message out. So we're going to go from 15,000 voters to 100,000 voters, and it's going to raise the expense of elections. So anyway, it's going to be very difficult, and I don't think that we're going to get better democracy, and it's going to lead to us being split on these kinds of decisions, which isn't really helpful considering the other things facing school districts. But in terms of this, the length of the term, and so a 6-year term, I agree there's lots of issues at stake here. 6 years is a long time to convince someone to be committed to this, and I just think that to ask someone, and all of us were considered and were asked, and the length of term, I think, was a very important part of this. I think that it's false to assume that there will necessarily be a turnover of 4 or 5 people every election, because especially with 4-year terms, you might consider a second term more likely than a second 6-year term. And so really, theoretically, there's no guarantee, unless, of course, the public is very disappointed in the current board, to consider that there would be a significant change of 4 or 5 members at that. And so I think I agree with the point is that really what we lose is accountability, is that if there's a real concern that the public feels a need to address, having to elect 3 6-year terms and then wait another 2 years to address that, because people won't get to return to that school board until 2 years later, where they could elect another 3 board members. Secondly, in terms of even the logistics for that, we still have a problem, because we will elect 2 members, the public will elect 2 members in November, and then 2 years later, we would have to, even with 6-year terms, we would have to elect 5 of us, unless we choose to run, and we may be less likely to choose a second term if it's another 6 years. And then we'd have to wait another 2 years and then have some bylaw changes in order to logistically allow for us to eventually get on 3-year cycles. So some of us would, so it's going to be very logistically problematic with the consequence of this. The other thing I think that we could end up with as a result of this length of time is that we could end up having persons being more likely to not complete their full term, and then to have the board end up electing someone to replace persons, and that person could theoretically serve quite a bit of time until the next available election. And so in none of those scenarios do we actually create the accountability that you all are we're seeking with this original decision. So I think that really staying to 4 years, and again, the only issue, as Ms. Geetson suggested, the possibility of having a lot of new people is if there is a full changeover at that time, which isn't guaranteed with this process, and ends up leading to the possibility. And it's just going to be, school board is hard work, and we all have to hit the ground running. And the fact is that, I would say that the 2 new school board members this year and the 2 new school board members last year and the 3 new school board members we had the year before had to hit the ground running. And we got hit pretty quickly with a lot of pretty heavy decisions that we had to get to work on. And there wasn't really much time, and it's unfortunate, but in this climate, we got to work really hard, really fast, and hope that we're making the right decisions. And I think that 4-year terms at least allows us, it seems a lot more manageable, and I think it also seems more, it provides a lot more accountability. So I would advocate for staying with the 4-year terms.
Reverend Hoskins?
Oh, yeah. I'm on the committee, and I was leaning towards the 4-year term. I talked to Chairman O'Connor before the meeting and told him, which way I was leaning now, because this is my 8th year on the board, and 05 or 06, I think we went through the same thing with the legislature. It was one of those years, you may know. From 3 or 4-year terms was our issue at that time. But in my 8th year, like I said, I was looking at it from my original decision, or to lean towards a 4-year. I was looking at it I guess I would say in a selfish way in a sense, because I'm like, man, I don't want to, 4 years long enough each term and those type of things. But then I thought about it after having some conversation with a couple of my colleagues, and then I also thought about this sign that I was privileged to really put out there when I was president of the board. It says, am I doing what is right for our children? You guys can't see it, but that's what it says, trust me. And so as I looked at that, I had to look at, well, I don't want to do 6 years, but then that's a selfish, I'm not saying anyone else is selfish, I'm saying I was looking at it from a selfish point of view, but then I had to say, what's best for the children? I think it's the stability part of it, I really do, when you look at the 6-year terms, and I think that when a person commits themselves, and this is just from my point of view, is nothing against what anyone else has said, I think that a really committed person is going to fill out that commitment unless something tragic happens, and that's understandable. But if we commit to 4 years or commit to 6 years, those persons that are around this table right now, I think will adhere to that commitment. So with that in mind, I'm advocating for the 6 years.
Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I definitely came into this literally on the fence, kind of looking at, pros and cons. And I guess at the end of the day, I had to say right now I'm leaning towards the 6 as well, even though I definitely understand the concerns about the politicization, I guess. I don't know if that's actually a word, if I said it clearly, but you know what I'm saying.
I understand what you mean.
But I guess as I think about it, from my perspective, I do think that Ms. Geeson's point is definitely valid as far as that getting to understand the process here. But as well, I'm thinking that I think it's really a good thing that someone has a 6-year term and doesn't have to look over their shoulder like a regular politician, so to speak. I think this work is really about true commitment and truly what's in your heart. And if someone is coming into it knowing that it's a 6-year commitment, I think that maybe says something about why they're doing it, as opposed to potentially doing it to appease voters. So that's pretty much really where I am, and that's why I'm there. And so anyway, I just wanted to add my 2 cents. I hadn't said anything, so that's what's up.
Dr. Randalls?
I think that following up on a couple things, so why is it that we have to wait until 2014 to change that the 5-year, the 5 people would be up? 2, 5, 2, if it went.
We don't have to wait till 2014. We could rearrange our bylaws now to set up 4 and 6-year terms to get to the point, but then you would have to amend those terms again. The 4-year terms would have to be amended. I have the cycle somewhere.
Sure.
How it plays out. You'd have to amend the 4-year terms to get it staggered correctly. I think maybe one election would be a 4-year term and a 6-year term. I think just so you can get everyone on the same rotation. How you would hope to get it to be 3-3-3. So it would take someone around this table knowing that has to happen at that point in time to bring that forward to continue.
So you run 2 seats for 6 years and then another split for 2 or 6.
Kind of like what you guys did, Kenny, when you pulled a straw literally to determine who.
And I think we have until we have till July 27th to submit our plan to the Secretary of State for the election.
Is it the city clerk's office, or because I received something from
The above plan would need to be submitted to the Secretary of State for approval. This change would need to be made at least 100 days before the November 2012 general election.
Secretary of State.
Okay.
Because they oversee elections for the entire state. They would have to approve it. The clerk would obviously have to be in the loop, but the Secretary of State would have to approve the plan that it's in compliance with the Public Act 233.
I had a few more points still. Yeah, and I think, we're all in agreement that this is sort of a bad situation that we're stuck with. And I think either way it goes for 6 years, I'm not going to hold a grudge against anybody in regard to, it's just not a great situation. And this aspect of, trying to have a crystal ball to figure out which election cycle is going to get us our best candidate, 4-year or 6-year. Either way, I think, just putting it in the even years in November, the concern about PAC money, different money, people who have agendas, this is going to be a big issue in terms of how to figure out which one is going to be the best way to get a candidate. And the more I mull this over, it makes me think that if you're trying to entice somebody to run in a 4-year term when they may not necessarily really be terribly committed to a school board, maybe putting it out as a 6-year term is where you're going to garner hopefully people who are truly dedicated to moving education along. So I still am on the fence.
Dr. Baker?
Yeah, just logistically, I want to just figure out in terms of how it's going to go. So I know that, okay, so we for sure have 2 people up in November, and none of the other board members can be up sooner than 2014 because that would shorten board members' terms.
No, according to the way the law is written, no terms can be shortened.
Okay, so that means that we will for sure have 2 new board members, well, 2 potentially means.
Open seats.
2 open seats.
2 open seats.
2 open seats.
There'll be 2 open seats in this.
No, I don't know. I mean, I've heard rumors that it would make this easy if you would just make an announcement right now, and we would just Ms. Geetson?
Not being put in that position.
Okay, so we will for sure have an election of 2 seats in November, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those persons would be either elected for 4 years or 6 years.
6 years.
Okay, that we would decide tonight. Then we would for sure have to have 5 people up for election in 2014.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and then those persons at that time would be, if they're elected for 6-year terms, we would then have to amend our policy later to shorten.
What you would potentially do is you would break it to be either 2 or 3 of those would be, probably 3 of those would be 6-year terms, 2 of those would be 4-year terms.
People would have to declare it up front.
What would most likely happen would be, it would be when you file, you would have to file as you're running for one of the 4-year terms or you're running for one of the 6-year terms.
And then they have 2 different sections on the ballot.
There'd be 2 different sections on the ballot. And then, those 4-year terms would have to get served out until you can get the rotation to the point where.
Okay, so then in 2014, we would elect 5 new, we would elect 5 board members, some of whom would serve 4. And this is the math, which would mean that their terms would go to either 2018 or 2020, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this seems like a real commitment. These people are planning to have grandkids by then, all right? So, okay.
I'm not even planning to have grandkids by then.
So, okay, but then in 2016, what does that election look like then? Because we've got 5 board members who can't be up again until 2018, right?
The 12s would still be the 2 6-year terms.
The 2 people this year were elected to 6-year terms. They wouldn't be up until 2018. And so then you would still have, then who would get elected in who would run for election in 2016?
There's 2 people left.
Yeah, there are 2 people.
2 people left.
2 people left.
5 plus 2 is 7.
Right.
Dr.
So then those
Mr.
persons would, but it would be 2020 then, until we got to our terms of having every three board members every 2 years.
There may potentially be one of those that has to be split, one to 4 and one to 6 to get them.
So really, we're voting on what the arrangement of the school board is going to look like in 2020.
Or 2022.
And Reverend Hoskins, when was the last time that the state made us change our election?
It was either 05 or 04, and what happened then?
So it's likely, there's a chance that we will have, by the time we get to this thing, that the state will have changed the way it does school board elections anyway.
The first impact would be 2014.
Well, 2014, we would still have to elect 5 board members.
I'm just saying that they would almost have to make a change before 2014, before this kind of kicks in. That would be the first time it kind of kicks in with the 4, 6.
The election consolidation package happened in 2005.
2005, so it's just been 7 years. So I guess my point is, though, is that it's still, in order to get to what we would like, which is 3 new board members every 2 years. We couldn't get there until 2020. And it's 2012. So if we went with 4-year terms today, at least then now what we do know that happens is that we would end up having 5 and 4 turnovers. But really, we don't really get what it is that we would like, what some people would like, until much later anyway, because we're not going to get that. And that assumes that by 2020, things haven't changed.
Unless like what happened with Lisa Hinkle and I, we actually ran on a slate together. We came in at the same time, but you notice she's not here and I am, because I had an extended year, and so we balanced that off.
So then we would have to have a 2-year term.
I'm just saying that's how we balanced it off. So maybe.
But you guys were on an every year election cycle though, where you
now
could
we have
do
to wait 2 years to balance things.
Right.
So this is really quite a. Yeah.
And the way that the scenario is drafted on the.
That some of what you're talking about, we went through the attorney. I mean, you're actually reviewing a lot of the conversation we had, and that's why we ended up with a 4-year, because when we started mapping it all out with the attorney, it was a mess, and it wasn't necessarily going to add stability because of the 5, and then so then we were like, it's not perfect with a 4-year, but.
And we're unique in the fact that it's a little more difficult because we are a 9-member board, and I think we're the only 9-member board in the state of Michigan. Where if you have a 7-member board, it would be you could do 2, 2, 3, or however you want to do it. It would be you could get there a little faster.
Yep. Well, many of the points that I wanted to make have been made already, and I do believe that the confusion behind the 6-year term, it does take a while to get into the cycle so that it kind of looks normal. But I'd rather have one opportunity to have 5 members up for election than every other year, which would be the case if you remain at a 4-year term. So I am in favor of a 6-year term. I think that the stability that when you look at neighboring districts that are thriving, that are successful, it has a lot to do with the stability at the leadership level, because the board has the authority to, no matter who's sitting in the superintendent's seat, and although I think that, that has, for obvious reasons, will determine the direction of the district, but I believe that a board has the ability to assist in the direction of a district. And, when I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about the knowledge that board members would have, and I'm looking at Kenny, and I would be the second person sitting on this board with the most historical knowledge because I was appointed in 2007, and that scares the heck out of me because I think about how much I don't know, and I'm supposed to be the one with, the second most amount of experience, having been here a little bit longer, obviously the same length as some of you, but a little bit longer. And I just believe that is to the detriment of our students. I believe that direction can be changed at the drop of a dime. This school district has done a lot in trying to bring stability to transient students who switch from school to school, to make sure that if they leave one building and walk into another, that we can pick up and be able to educate them without them missing a beat, and that's tough enough. But if the direction, which has the potential, I understand that it isn't guaranteed, nothing is guaranteed, but it has the potential of being able to change every other year, and I think that will negatively impact the students of this district. I have been asking board members across the state. While we were in D.C., I was asking the Michigan delegation what their plans were, and everyone is going to a 6-year term, those who have not already made that switch. The Kent County delegation, the same thing. Everybody's saying the exact same thing, that you had to kind of take self out of the equation and do what was best to bring stability to a district. And so, and I've expressed this to Mr. O'Connor for months now, when this kind of first started, this conversation first started, that this was my position, and I have been asking questions to try and make sure that it's the best decision, and based on all the information that I've been able to garner, I am remaining with my thought and position of the 6-year term. Any other questions, comments? Dr. Randles?
I just want to comment that it's, I think we're all belaboring these points because I think it's just a bad, we don't feel like it's a good decision anyway, and I want to thank the committee for working hard and presenting some solid information. And I think that, like I said, nobody's happy with trying to come up with a solution to this, and I think we all understand the weightiness of being a board member, and that we want it to really continue to encourage good candidates to come forward.
And I think, and to that point, there are a couple local boards who have 6-year terms, and they have boards that look a lot like this board, with a diverse group of working professionals, retirees, and each time they're up for election, they have good quality candidates who are applying. So, and maybe a couple that may not be, but that's the same with us as a 4-year term. So, some good quality, and then every so often you're like, where'd that come from? So I think that, I don't think that is going to deter people who are very interested, and I think Mr. Ross said it best. You'll get candidates who are probably more serious about their commitment and the passion for this work versus, a political stepping stone. So, Dr. Falk?
I think all of us are concerned with, both accountability and stability and responsiveness and getting good candidates and, which it's going to bring it. One of the things we haven't talked about was serving 2 terms, and you can go either way. We had all of this discussion in the committee, but if you're looking for longer institutional knowledge and longer commitments, it's quite often board members serve 2 terms, but I think that will be very unlikely with 12 years in the mix. So on some level, we were thinking the 4 years would actually encourage longer term service with, somebody running a second term and doing 8 years, but running a second 6-year term, it might be unlikely. So you might inadvertently, in trying to get more stability with the 6 years, you might inadvertently get less stability. So you'll get board members serving 6 years versus 8 years. So that was another point we had in our discussion, and that was actually something Reverend Hoskins had brought up, and we had talked about it. So I just thought I would throw that in.
Ms. Geeson?
So in response to that, I don't know if we even know what we don't know yet about what it's going to be like to run in November.
Yeah.
These elections have gotten more and more difficult over time. You have to raise more and more money, and to do that twice, I think, is difficult. You do have the benefit of being an incumbent. I don't know how much that'll really matter in a November election, because as you've pointed out with statistics, a lot of those people are not paying attention to who's sitting at this table. So I do have some concerns about the gravity and taking. There's 2 different things that happen to a board member, right? Running and doing the job, and they couldn't be more different if you tried. And not everybody who would be a good board member is good at running an election, and maybe vice versa.
That's democracy.
Dr. Baker?
Yeah, just one thing. I do think, though, a couple of things. I think that, first of all, I know that everybody here takes their service as board members to be one of the most serious parts of their lives, and I think that I hear a lot of great things about the current superintendent, and I hear a lot of great things about this board, and I think that there's a trust in the community about the work that this board is doing, and I think that that wasn't always true. And elections is what created this board, and I think that it's really important to take it. So I don't think that we would get less committed candidates because they were running for 4-year terms than 6-year terms, because all of us are sitting here elected to 4-year terms, and all of us probably pondered a lot the gravity of the commitment we were undertaking when we chose 4 years. And we might have thought, even though perhaps we understand very seriously where we're at, we might have thought that the task sounded too daunting to consider a 6-year term. And I think that that's really a lot to take into account. And I think that we could have perhaps lost some of us that are here if we would have thought of the possibility of planning on a 6-year commitment, even though all of us are very serious and committed. And so I don't like the characterization that somehow we're not as committed as the people who might choose to run for 6 years. Reverend Hoskins is here now in his 8th year, right? Because he chose to run for re-election, and the community supported him when he did so. And I think that it's a very important thing to do that. And then there are some people who are here because the community didn't want to support people who used to be here. And so I think that elections are good, and this allows the opportunity of turnover when the turnover is important. And again, I just think that logistically we don't even get what it is that we'd like to have of those that support the 6 years in terms of creating stability until 2020. It just doesn't really get to where we need to be in terms of that. And then again, it is an unfortunate scenario that the state has put us in. So, but anyway, some of us will be here. I ran for a 1-year term, and I get to stay until 2014 somehow. So, so do the math on that one. so.
Good timing.
Any other questions, comments? So we have the drafts as they're written have.
I guess, as they haven't ever been motioned into discussion.
Do we deliberate now? Well, that'll make getting through all of them much faster
than. Policy committee guy would have been able to decide.
I guess we would
saw
first.
It take off and like, this isn't real.
just thinking, how to do this appropriately.
Mm-hmm.
To make these changes, to move these policies into discussion and then try to figure all this out at the table tonight is going to be kind of daunting. I guess maybe we could entertain a motion to send it back to the committee for further review. I don't know how to do this.
I think that's a good question. I think maybe perhaps what could be done is there could be some vote of what people prefer, and then that could be, then the body's voice could be taken back. So if that's 4 or 6,
I think that's what I meant.
and then you change the content, which I don't think there are many changes.
Well, not really. Hang on one second here. Let me get the policies back up with the notes in them.
1030 would have just changing the first line to.
Yep.
6, if that were the change.
If that were the change.
If this is a first reading, is voting on it appropriate?
We've done that with our other policies. We've made changes the first reading, and then when they've come back, they've had.
Second reading, then we vote. So we're not.
Because we've even had a legal opinion on one of them that we voted on in first reading.
Oh, yeah, it should be.
Okay. That's the only one that I'm really seeing, but I think it does warrant having someone to take a closer look at it in between this reading and the second.
Let's decide whether we want to go to, I guess we'd need to make a motion of how you, I'll let somebody else do that.
Can we have a motion, please? The motion would consist of either, switching from the 4 to 6 or remaining at a 4-year term. That's what the motion would need to be.
I'll make a motion that we switch from 4 to 6 years for the election cycle.
Any support?
I'll support that.
Now we're open for discussion.
I would amend your motion if you would be so amenable to create the to establish a scenario in which 3 board member cycles per election would.
Happen in 2020?
So you're saying amended so that the policy committee could bring the content?
Content
Why didn't
back.
you say the motion? Some of it was before.
Because I was in favor of a 4-year term, so I'll let somebody else do it.
Oh,
but if I
okay.
didn't-
He's asking you to amend your motion to include sending it back to the policy to come up with what the structure
the
would look
structure,
like.
so that would end up being 3.
Okay.
Before the second reading.
I'll make a motion that the policy committee review the language in order to potentially establish something that gives us
the
cycle for 6-year terms.
6-year terms with 3 individuals up per election.
Does it have to
By
be that? Couldn't
2020.
maybe multiple options be brought? I mean, because maybe it's 2, 3, I don't know. Does it have to be that?
I think to get to that point, it's going to
It
take
always
some.
will end up being 3, 3, and 3?
Yes.
That's my question.
Yes, that's what the intent would be, to figure out how we get it so it can be 3.
I think we can still leave that. I mean, you can still bring that. I don't know if that needs to be specified now, though.
Right. Okay. Still supporting? Whoever supported Slade, are you supporting that
I will.
amendment? Amended? Okay.
Yep.
Now it's open for more discussion.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a way to put somebody on an 8-year?
Yeah, I think you could do just about anything you wanted.
Would that get us to our,
We're putting you on a lifetime term, Jane.
Supreme Court, you know.
Are you volunteering? No.
It could happen.
But I'm just wondering, I don't have time to do the math at this table, but is there a way that it would, we can get to that 20?
Potentially.
So that's really what we're asking you to do, is go back and figure that out.
Figure that all out.
All right. Any other discussion? Thank goodness.
Yeah, I got something.
Oh, go ahead.
The only thing I would say is that the ad hoc committee only needs to do that in 1 meeting, no more.
You're saying that's us or the ad hoc committee members?
He is a member.
I'm a member.
Policy
I only
committee
want to go to
member.
one more meeting for this.
Okay, I'm just simply asking.
Getting lazy on me, Kenny.
The committed board member.
Looking at us. It's like, really?
What, is that what's right for the children? Kenny only has to go to one more meeting?
No, I've been doing this 8 years. I said one more meeting for this.
Good, Tony.
One more meeting for this specific policy.
Okay, all righty. Okay, any other discussion items? There being none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Baker,
No.
Alb,
No.
Geetson, yes. Hoskins,
Yes.
O'Connor,
No.
Randalls.
Can you skip me?
Drum roll.
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
Slade,
Yes.
President Lanier.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-3.
Motion to approve the resolution regarding the officer extensions to January.
Well, we have 2 other policies.
They're
These are
all,
first reading.
they're
I
all
thought-
first
They're all
related to
connected.
this. So that motion will cover.
Did we say all policies, or did we only said, we were saying 10:30, but did you?
I just captured it as go
motion.
back and visit the 4 to 6 year term.
Okay.
Yeah.
So include the 3 policies. I just want to make sure that the
right.
record is correct.
And then on 1152, there is a
Somebody
July,
support
it should be
John's motion?
January.
I supported it.
You said there's a July that should
Just
be
for the
January?
resolution?
Yeah, it's just a pro forma to.
The resolution is just regarding the extension,
current-
as our current board election cycles are up in January, or in July, this would automatically
Officer.
extend all of our officer
Vice president
positions
until
until January, and that this resolution will have effect regardless of 4 or 6 year terms. It's just, if not, we can have an election in July if you like, and then have another officer election in January.
You got, was that a motion?
I made a motion originally to.
Did we hear a support?
Wendy supported it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Confusing.
Can I have a clarification?
Yeah, sure.
Of the motion? The motion is?
The motion is to approve the resolution, which is included in your packet,
Concerning the officers.
concerning the officers.
No.
No, it's not a policy, it's a
It's just Sunita will stay president until January versus.
Anita and all of us.
July.
officers.
All
Yeah,
officers
and
and committees.
Jane and the committees and everything.
I just thought it referred
Just-
to this
yeah.
election of officers and length of term.
No, it's not, it's necessary regardless of what
I understand that.
Whatever happens.
I understand that.
It's early on in the packet. It wasn't where the
With the other policies.
modified
Yeah.
policies were, because I was looking for it behind those policies too, Mo, but it's not back there. It was way in the front, I think. And like the public, in the public packet. Any other discussion? Mo, you ready for the vote, or you want to find it first?
Yeah, tell me where it is.
That's
I
on.
thought I had
In
it.
the front of the packet.
Yeah, I think you did.
It's,
Yeah, mine is too hard to.
It's,
days.
Scrolling, that's right, 'cause it's not in the... It's page 11 of the packet.
Page 11. Extension of the terms of the current officers of the Board of Education.
That's what I thought it was.
Must either.
You're good? Okay. Now you can call the roll.
Okay, are we ready? Baker?
Yes.
Bell? Yes. Eaton, yes. Hoskins?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Randalls?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Slade?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next we have our consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second it. Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
No, you have to call the roll. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the opening for discussion, sorry.
Baker?
Yes.
Bell? Yes. Eaton, yes. Hoskins?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Randalls?
Yes.
Ross?
Yes.
Slade?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries 9-0.
There are no discussion items. We're at public comment. If you are interested in giving public comment, please complete one of the cards that are on the tables as you enter and exit. Mr. Helder, you're welcome to come down. Just hold them up if you're interested, and someone will grab them and bring them up to us. Good evening.
Good evening. First off, let me just say that I know that some people may not have appreciated the conversation which just took place, but I did. It's good for people to understand what exactly this legislature has caused problem-wise. I know the teachers understand what problems it's caused for them. The poor understand what problems it's caused for them. The retirees understand what problems it's caused for them. This is about local government and those rights being stepped on too, and the issues that it's going to cause throughout this state. There was no right answer to the problem facing you. There isn't one. They're all bad choices. Voter participation will increase, but voter information about who they're voting for will decrease dramatically. I don't think that serves children well at all. I guess when I look at it with those two options that were discussed, the idea of voting for 5 people at one election and 4 people the next is terrifying. On the other hand, if it was 6-year terms, I'd be addressing President Mueller right now. So there has to be an accountability piece in there as well. And I don't know what that's going to look like. And in a way, fortunately, I don't have to decide. I guess I would ask the board to look very carefully and see if there is a plan C somewhere. Stability is easy. Everybody has a 25-year term. That's stable. Accountability is easy. Everybody has a 2-year term. Where you find that middle ground, I'm not sure. I don't envy the task in front of you. As far as what I had planned on speaking about, the bargaining situation, I think everyone here knows that we're a little behind right now in terms of our bargaining schedule. Nobody's fault in particular or anything, just the way things worked out. The good news is I do feel that we're setting up a good foundation for bargaining in terms of trust and understanding, which should help bargaining move a lot faster. Very recently, Superintendent Neal and I met to discuss the alternative ed calendar. There were 3 issues that I believe had held up some of the voting with that issue. We solved 2 of those 3, just sitting together for about 15 minutes, the money issue and the how does the language have to change issue. The third issue we were not able to solve, and believe it or not, it's not because she didn't want the change or I didn't want the change or the association or anybody else. It's because the attorneys don't agree what the changes that Lansing has made mean. And because they don't agree and can't agree, and the havoc that potentially could cause, we were not able to reach agreement. But I want to make sure the board understands one thing, and I know I'm out of time. One of the major differences, bargaining-wise, when I talk about the foundation we've set for bargaining, when Ms. Neal and I could not agree on something to take back to our respective teams, we hugged afterward and said, well, we'll figure it out later. I don't need to tell you that would not have happened. Okay? Not without an ice pick in somebody's left hand or something, in the past. So it is an improvement. I'm confident that bargaining will proceed quickly once we get started on it. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a card from Lupe, but I don't see her now. We went too long. We dressed so well for her tonight. I don't know about you. Okay. Oh, I'm presentable. I don't know about others.
Right. President Lanier.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Johnson was thinking maybe she's in the lobby.
She withdrew. Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Okay, superintendent's comments?
I would just like to really thank Rockford Construction Company for their support for those seniors. That was awesome. I mean, we put the call out, and they answered right away and did what was necessary. And it wasn't just the T-shirts, but the backpacks as well. So I really appreciate their support.
Okay. Mr. Ross?
No comment.
Ms. Slade?
No comment.
Ms. Geetson?
Oh, I just want to thank all the people that help make the school system run well. I mean, we could not do this without our partners. You heard many of their names tonight, and every single board meeting, all of these people that are graciously giving, and that's what makes all this possible. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Randalls?
I just want to thank Superintendent Neal. All we keep hearing is more and more great things. I love it when she gets a challenge and pushback from the students, and she converts it into a great learning opportunity and helps kids reframe their feelings about schools. So I salute you. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Mr. O'Connor?
I'm just excited to announce that last Friday at the City School Liaison Committee, in partnership with the City of Grand Rapids, we will be having recycling instituted in all district facilities sooner than later.
Including this one?
That's right.
All district buildings. We're still in process. Mr. Klump-Parents is still in process of working out some details. This could potentially be a cost savings for GRPS. So we'll
Another win would be to get rid of these.
Yes, absolutely. So soon, a lot of our buildings are already participating on their own, on a voluntary basis, but we're gonna make sure that recycling bins and/or dumpsters will be provided at all facilities within the very near future.
Way to lead.
Reverend Hoskins?
Just glad to have everyone out, especially some individuals from from Ferris State University, where Dr. Baker is a professor, and where Mr. Lewis is a graduate of Ferris State.
Larry Johnson.
I didn't know that.
Larry Johnson and myself. So you got a lot of Bulldogs up in here, so welcome, Bulldogs. One of your Bulldogs dogged me out tonight, but
One of your Bulldogs
and so, yeah, so when this Bulldog, I won't mention any names, but when this Bulldog,
You're keeping it 100.
there you go. When this Bulldog gets 8 years on the board, and I don't brag, I put my boast in the Lord, but when my first 5 years, I was perfect attendance at every committee meeting, so I am very committed, but I like to make productive meetings and not just meet to meet, so that's what I meant, Dr. Baker. But
You're in your sunset years, right?
there you go. I'm in my sunset years, so.
Dr. Paul?
Hey.
Well, I just want to thank the donors to the Blandford program. My son is there this year. It is an amazing program, and I noticed that at least two of those donors are Grand Rapids Public School employees who are also former Blandford graduates. I know Mr. Baumgartner was one of the first Blandford students, and I think that goes to how formational that program is. It really makes an impact on those kids. So.
Dr. Baker?
Yes, Tim, you want to wave? Tim for Rockford Construction. So Tim actually does a lot for Grand Rapids Public School students and works with the Extended Learning Opportunity as the chair of that group, and I think it's really important. It's nice that they're contributing so much to the kids here. Also, I'd like to thank John and the rest of his committee. This is a lot of, these policy discussions are actually quite a bit of work, and if you notice that they had to listen to lawyers and get legal feedback, and it's quite a bit of work that that goes into this. So I really appreciate that work. And I want to thank Ferris and Virginia for bringing students persistently. I think that probably more so than any other university that shows up every semester, and really hopefully get you guys to understand this kind of work that ends up influencing what happens in your buildings, although it's maybe difficult to pay attention to it, but this stuff ends up mattering. So great that you guys are here tonight, and so that's it.
I'll make it fast. I'm grateful for Susan Hartwell for stopping by, and hopefully all of you are planning to be at Mindshare next Tuesday. And as well, Shannon and Denise, the event that they were talking about, the two-day conference, also includes Kids Speak. So those of you who have participated on the listening panel, hopefully you guys have agreed to doing that. When is it? The 27th of April. And I'd just like to also add to the committee, thank you for your work and doing the research for this. If I can just give some input, I know that the ISD, who has a staff attorney, as well as MASB, who also have attorneys on staff, they have, it'll probably be free to get them to help you out with the cycle. It may, that instead of spending money with any attorney that we may have affiliation with.
Our attorneys already provided some framework.
Yeah.
It's just figuring out the details.
Yeah. So if you guys needed that, I know that they have. It isn't in favor of either, but they have some of the information, the background information, and may be able to help with some options and how a 6-year term cycle could look. And that's all I have. Have a great evening. Meeting adjourned.